Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me? Namidullah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so those who just joined now, you have to rename yourself with your registration number plus your calling name. So group number one, who was the leader of group number one?
I am, sir.
Yes, Namidullah. Okay, so you all can take about 5 minutes. Don't take much time. You just have to summarize the things that you have gone through the material. So you can share the screen and start doing the presentation. Don't take too much time. You can have about 5 minutes maximum. Are you clear, Navidula? Can you hear me, Navidula?
Sir, I am from group 3.
You're from group 3. Then who is from group number 1?
I am Sir Samadhi.
Samadhi, okay. You can share the screen and do the presentation. You can have about 5 minutes. No need to go into deep explanations. You just have to summarize the things that you have done, okay? How many of you all are presenting?
All, but some people have connection problem.
Okay, just show me the presentation that you're doing. Each one of you all can do this presentation. You can do this one casually. No need to be formal or anything. You can just summarize the things that you have done. You can share the screen, Samadhi. Yes, Samadhi, you can share the screen.
Okay, sir. सबना share करना क्यों?
Okay. Did you all use the Google slides that I have shared, or you have prepared another one? Or you have used another one? No. Is everyone here, or you all have connection issues? Samadhi?
Can see, sir.
Is everyone here? How many slides do you have, Samadhi?
Ten.
Okay.
10 slides.
What I will do is I will ask questions from the person who is doing slides and they can answer. So you don't need to present. Is it okay? Or do you all need to present? So what about others? What do you all prefer? To present the things that you have done, or shall I ask some questions from you? Then you don't need to present if I ask questions. Okay, so somebody is telling we will present. Okay, so what we are going to do is, when is your discussion class? Is it today?
Yes, sir.
At what? Asanga, when do you have your discussion classes and what time?
3 to 4.
3 to 4. No, okay. So then I will take the presentations in the discussion class. I will carry on with the presentation today because we might not have time if I get the presentations now. We will have the presentations in the discussion class. Is it okay with you all? Yeah, I think it's fine. Okay, so we'll do the lesson now and then we'll take this presentations in the discussion class. Okay, so I will share the screen now. So, Okay, give me a minute. I will share the screen. Sabna, can you stop sharing? Okay, so I will share the screen now. Just give me a minute. Hope I, okay, hope I am audible to you all. I will share the screen. Give me a minute. Okay, hope you all can see my screen. Everyone, can you rename yourself with your registration number plus your calling name? So I don't like to repeat this every time. So just rename me with your registration number plus your calling name. Everyone. So Nitmi, can you hear me properly and can you see my screen? Ruani, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can hear me, no? Okay. Okay, so we will move on now. So in the last week lecture, we discussed about supply chain performance. So this was our second lesson. So we had to cover a certain part. I will go through that part. So this part was I gave this part for you all to do as a homework or an activity, a group activity rather than a homework. Okay, so in the lesson we had to cover mainly like three parts. We covered what is a competitive strategy and what is supply chain strategy, what is meant by achieving strategic fit, and everything. So, can somebody remember what is meant by achieving strategic fit in terms of like discussing about supply chain strategies and other things? So, what is mean? What is the meaning of achieving strategic fit? Can somebody just mention what is the meaning of achieving strategic fit? Vandana, can you remember what is meant by achieving strategic fit? Vandana, you will have to answer, okay? Yes, Vandana, I can't hear you yet.
Yes.
Can you remember what is achieving strategic fit? So, can you just explain what is achieving strategic fit, Vandana? Okay, so what about Sajini? Can you just explain what is achieving strategic fit means?
So I can't remember.
Okay, Sajini, it's okay. So if you can't remember, you can just mention that you can't remember, so I can ask from another person. So just don't wait without responding. Okay, so it's better. Upamali, can you remember what's achieving strategic fit?
I can't remember, sir.
Okay, so nobody can remember the things that we have discussed in the last week. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so basically achieving strategic fit means, so in an organization, we have discussed that there are a competitive strategy within our organization. So based on the competitive strategy, we have to align our supply chain strategy. So basically, aligning your competitive strategy and supply chain strategy is known as achieving the strategic fit. Or in other words, we can say this. It's basically mean having a consistency between the customer priorities. So basically, through a competitive strategy, what we define is customer priorities. So the customer's priority could be in terms of time, in terms of cost, in terms of quality. Likewise, there are different priorities. And aligning with the supply chain capabilities. So in a supply chain strategy, what we define is the supply chain capabilities. So basically aligning the competitive strategy with the supply chain strategy is known as achieving strategic fit. So I hope everyone is clear now. So we discussed all of these things in the last week lecture, and we had to discuss from here onwards. So basically I gave you all a group activity that needs to be done. We will take the particular presentation slides in your discussion class, or by myself or by the discussion lecturer. Okay, so basically to achieve a strategic fit, a company must ensure that the supply chain capabilities supports its ability to satisfy the need of the targeted customer segment. So we discussed these things. To achieve this particular strategic fit, we can identify three major steps. Okay, so three major steps are understanding the customer and supply chain uncertainty. So I will quickly glance through these things because we have done the group work also. I just have to verify the knowledge that you have gained. I don't need to explain each and everything. And the second one is understanding supply chain capabilities, and finally achieving strategic fit. So these are the three stages that you have to go through when you are achieving a strategic fit in the supply chain context. So the first one is understanding the customer and supply chain uncertainty. So what is meant by understanding customer? So for example, as we mentioned earlier, in a supply chain, through the marketing function, they have to identify a particular customer segment that they are going to cater. So basically, in that particular market, they have to identify the needs of the customer segment. Okay, so basically, understanding the customer means identifying the needs of the customer segment being served. Okay, so basically, customer demand from different segment varies along several attributes. So it basically means customers' needs differ based on different attributes. Customers' demand or customer needs varies based on different attributes, such as the quantity of the product needed in each store. Okay, so for example, is our supply chain going to cater to the whole market, means to the wholesalers or to the individual customers? For example, if a wholesaler is requesting products, it is in large lots. The quantity is very high. If it is for an individual customer, the quantity is very low. And the response time the customer is willing to tolerate. Some customers may need the items very quickly. Some items does not. Some customers does not care about the time. They need the lowest cost for the particular product. And the variety of products, the service level required, about after sales service, package tracking, likewise the services required, and the price of the product, the desired rate of innovation, whether the product is highly innovative or not. Likewise, for example, people who use Apple, Samsung, these products have to be highly innovative. The rate of innovation should be high. Each and every year, they have to provide new innovative products. So likewise. So these are some attributes where the particular customer basically the customer's attributes differ based on these aspects. Okay, so moving on. Is everyone clear about this aspect? So when you're identifying the needs of the customer, so basically to understand the customer, you have to identify the needs of the customer. So the needs of the customer differs based on these several attributes. Are you all clear? Divanu, are you clear, Divanu?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you have any questions, you can stop me then and there and ask questions, then you can clarify. Okay, so we're moving on. So the other one is understanding the customer and supply chain uncertainty. So when you consider about uncertainty, you have to know about what is meant by demand uncertainty. So demand uncertainty reflects the uncertainty of customer demand for a product. So that is demand uncertainty. For example, if we consider a car, so what is the demand uncertainty for that particular car? Uncertainty of customer demand for the car as a whole. And the next one is implied demand uncertainty. So implied demand uncertainty is the resulting uncertainty for only the portion of the demand that the supply chain satisfy based on the attributes of the customer desires. So basically there is a difference between demand uncertainty and implied demand uncertainty. So as I mentioned earlier, so demand uncertainty means uncertainty for a particular product. The product could be a car, or for example, or it could be laptops, or it could be smartphones. So likewise, these are products. So demand uncertainty is reflects the uncertainty of a customer demand for a particular product. So when you consider an implied demand uncertainty, we have to consider only the portion of the demand that the supply chains plans to satisfy. For example, uh, in the car industry, if we are only focusing on customers, the high-end customers who prefer luxury products. So for only that for only that portion, we are considering the uncertainty of the demand. So that is known as implied demand uncertainty. So only for the portion of the demand that the supply chains like plans to satisfy is known as the uncertainty in there is known as implied demand uncertainty. Are you all clear? The difference between demand uncertainty and implied demand uncertainty. Tahani, Israt, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Sajini, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what about Ashay, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask me later also. So for example, if you consider like Sparsilone is a organization is in the cosmetic industry. So the product would be cosmetic products, but Sparsilone targets a niche market, high-end market. So basically the uncertainty in that particular high-end market is very high because they have high product margins, high forecast errors might be there, stock out rates are there. So because of those reasons, their implied demand uncertainty is high. Okay, so this is an example for like implied demand uncertainty. I hope you all are clear about that one. So these are certain instances where our implied demand uncertainty is high. For example, I will explain one or two from here. For example, if you consider like range of quantity required. For example, for a lot, if the range of quantity is higher, range of quantity required means, for example, certain people will ask for small lots. Certain people will ask for like large lots. If they are catering for like a range of quantities required, their implied demand is uncertainty is high because they don't know whether they have to like provide small lots or whether they need to like supply large lots. Likewise, if the range of quantity required is increases, the implied demand uncertainty is also high. So if they surely know that they have to provide small lots, the implied demand uncertainty would be low. If they know surely that they have to provide large lots, the implied demand uncertainty low. If their range of quantity required increases, like small lots, large lots, and the range of like the quantity required increases, the implied demand uncertainty is also high. And if we take like a rate of innovation increases, for example, for a product, the rate of innovation. So every 2 months, they are come up with a new product. For example, if in the like in the mobile phone industry, if they are coming up new products every 2 months, their demand for that particular product is uncertain. Sometimes the product demand might be very high. If their innovation is very successful, the product demand would be very high. So if the innovation is not like seen valued by the customers, the demand would not be very high. So because of that, the implied demand uncertainty is very high in if we are increasing our rate of innovation. So these are some certain areas or certain based on the customer needs where where the particular implied demand uncertainty increases. Okay. So moving on, this is the implied uncertainty demands spectrum, uncertainty demand or supply spectrum. For example, if you consider a product like salt. So how many of you all cook at home? Lakshi, do you cook at home?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so do you know what is the monthly usage of salt in your household? Lakshi,
Yes, sir.
about how much usually?
Three packets.
3 packets. No? Okay, so one packet would be like 200 grams. If we say it's 200 grams, usually about 600 grams is taken. So likewise, salt is has a very predictable demand as well as supply. So basically, for each and every household, we can surely say this amount of salt is taken. There might be a small variation, but usually the demand and the supply is very predictable. So under such situation, the implied uncertainty is very low. In here, we have a predictable supply and demand. And as I mentioned earlier, a new communication device, highly uncertain supply as well as demand. Demand is also very uncertain and the supply is also very uncertain for a communication device. So in between, for example, we can say agriculture products such as coffee. I will explain that example. So in here, we might have predictable supply but uncertain demand, or else the other way. We might have uncertain supply or a predictable demand, or in between, somewhat uncertain supply as well as demand. So there are three situations that can be in the middle. For example, if we take the agriculture product, for this product, our demand, our supply is very certain because we know how much are we going to harvest each season. But our demand from customers are uncertain. For example, if we not like a country in Sri Lanka, in a country like where they have 4 seasons, in the uh, in the summer, they might go for cold drinks and they might they might not use like coffee, like hot drinks. Most of the time, coffee is made hot. So in winter times, the demand for coffee is high. So the the demand is uncertain. So that's why we say agricultural products such as coffee has a some kind of implied uncertain demand. So that's why it's in the middle. So this is the implied uncertainty, demand and supply spectrum. Is everyone clear? Can you all send me a message through chat option whether you are clear or not? Can everybody send me a message through the chat option whether you are clear or not? If you have any questions, you can ask. If not, we can move forward if you don't have any questions. Okay, so as you all don't have any questions, we will move forward. So the next one is, just give me a minute. Okay, so next one is, the second step is understanding the supply chain capabilities. So the first one was understanding the customer needs and supply chain uncertainty. So we got to understanding about what is meant by understanding the customer and what is supply chain uncertainty. Now you have to understand the capabilities of your supply chain. Okay, so basically in here we have to answer how does the firm best meet demand in that uncertain environment. So basically any organization is working in an uncertain environment. Okay, so to best meet the demand in the uncertain environment, a supply chain strategy should focus on. So we discussed a supply chain strategy could be focused on supply chain responsiveness or supply chain efficiency. So we have to identify whether we are going to go for responsive supply chain or a efficient supply chain or somewhere in between. Okay, so we can say a supply chain is very responsive if the supply chain has the ability to do the following things: respond to wide ranges of quantities demanded. So if the particular supply chain has the ability to respond to wide ranges of quantities or meet short lead times, handle variety of products, build highly innovative products, meet high service level, handle supply uncertainty. So likewise, if a supply chain is able to do one of these things or one or many of these things, we can say our supply chain is responsive. If we can cater more of these things, it's a highly responsive supply chain. Are you all clear? So do you all know what is meant by lead time? Kaushani, do you know what is meant by lead time?
No, sir.
Okay, so what about Varuni, do you know what is meant by lead time? Okay, so no. Okay, so I will explain what is lead time. So yeah, I have an answer. The time in between placing the order and receiving the order. Yes, Navidula, you are correct. So basically, lead time means that the lead time is the time in between placing the order and receiving the order. So basically, the time difference between when a customer places an order and it is shipped to the customer. The difference between those two things are known as the lead time. So basically, if you can have if your lead time is very short, you have a highly responsive supply chain. Okay, so the next one is responsiveness comes at a certain cost. For example, if our supply chain is focusing on going for a highly responsive supply chain, it has a certain cost. So if we are increasing our cost, it means our supply chain becomes less efficient. So efficiency focuses on the usage of resources. Okay, so to respond to a wider range of quantities demanded, capacity must be increased. So to cater a wider range of quantities demanded in a supply chain, we have to increase the capacity of our manufacturing facilities or any other service facilities. So if we are increasing those things, it increases cost. So it specifically means our supply chain efficiency gets low. So supply chain efficiency focuses on cost of making and delivering a product to the customer. So increases in customer means we are going to lower our efficiency. So I hope everyone is clear about these relationships. So for every strategic choice to increase responsive, so if we are going to improve the responsiveness, there are additional costs associated with that increasement of responsiveness. So when you are increasing our responsiveness, our efficiency becomes lower. Okay, so you have to have that understanding about this relationship. So whenever you want to improve the responsiveness, there is additional cost associated with improving responsiveness. It means you are going to lower the efficiency of the supply chain. So are you all clear about that relationship? Kaushani, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about Khatu? Are you clear, Khatu?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you are also clear, no? Okay, so I hope everyone have understanding about the. Okay, so Asjad is asking me to explain it again. So I will explain that relationship with you using this particular frontier. Okay, so in this frontier, you can see here you have responsiveness. Here you have responsiveness, and here you have considers about the cost. For example, if your supply chain focuses on going for high responsiveness in this mirror, in this particular point in the frontier, it means your responsiveness is high, but your cost is also high. So cost, if you go for high responsiveness high mean your cost is also high. So if you are increasing your cost, it means you are lowering your efficiency of the supply chain. So if you are not focusing on responsiveness, but the customers want very low cost products, so then your responsiveness would be low and your cost would be low. In here, your efficiency would be high, but your responsiveness of your supply chain would be low. Ashyat, are you clear now?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay. So in here, for example, if an organization is somewhere in between here, they can improve their responsiveness as well as efficiency. So they can move towards this frontier. So if they are inside the frontier, they can move towards the frontier. So these are economic concepts. So if you are within the, if you are like, within means if you are inside this frontier, you can move towards this frontier, like this point, or this point. Okay, so in here you can improve in both responsiveness as well as efficiency as an organization. So if you are in the frontier, there is a trade-off. Either you have to go for responsiveness or for cost. You cannot have both, means somewhere in between you can have, but you cannot have to the fullest responsiveness as well as highest efficiency. Okay, so these are the things that I explained here. So as I mentioned, we have to make a trade-off between efficiency and responsiveness if we are on the frontier. So if we are not on the frontier, we can move towards the efficient frontier through improving responsiveness as well as efficiency. Okay, so for example, we can say the responsive spectrum, highly efficient. Highly efficient means our responsiveness is very low, but our efficiency is very high. It means our cost of production is very low. For example, integrated steel mills. So production is scheduled for weeks, months in advance. So there is little variability of demand, and flexibility is also very low. But their demand is very certain. So they can produce it in a very highly efficient manner. So the other one is highly responsive. So 7-Eleven means is like a small supermarket chain. So their demand varies, their price, their product mix varies. Likewise, because of those different things, they should be highly responsive. And if you consider most automotive production, like motor vehicles, they should be somewhat responsive. And if you consider like garment manufacturing, they are somewhat efficient. They should be responsive as well, and they should be efficient as well. So likewise, this is the responsive spectrum. So each supply chain should position themselves to become either highly efficient or somewhat efficient, somewhat responsive, or highly responsive. Okay, so this is understanding supply chain capabilities. So based on the customer requirements and your capabilities, you are going to be either responsive or efficient or somewhere in between. So to achieve this one, we have to achieve the strategic fit. So achieving the strategic fit means, so as I mentioned earlier, we have to identify our competitive strategy first. And then based on that, we have to define our supply chain strategy. So when you are achieving the strategic fit, we have to consider these things. So I have to ensure that the degree of supply chain responsiveness is consistent with the implied uncertainty. So implied uncertainty of our customer need or customer segment that we are focusing on. We have to go for high responsiveness supply chain if we have a high implied demand uncertainty for our product. High responsiveness, if it is high responsiveness, sorry, if you have a high implied uncertainty, we have to go for high responsive supply chain. If you have low implied demand uncertainty for our product, we can go for a efficient supply chain. So we can depict this particular relationship in a particular graph like this. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have a certain demand, we can go for efficient supply chain. So we have to operate within this particular zone of strategic fit. So as an organization, as a supply chain, we have to operate within this particular zone of strategic fit. Okay, so if you have a certain demand, it means our demand is very certain. So we can go for efficient supply chain. If our implied demand uncertainty or implied uncertainty is very uncertain, we have to operate as a responsive supply chain. Okay. So our focus should be that our organization should be within this particular zone of strategic fit. Okay, so is everyone clear? So these are some differences between efficient supply chain and responsive supply chains. You can go through these things by your own time. Okay, so this is the activity that I gave for you all as a homework. I hope everyone went through that particular homework or group activity. So if you have gone through that particular reading or excerpt that I have given to you all, you would have gained a better understanding than the explanation given by me. Okay, so is everyone clear about the things that we covered up to now? Israt, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Ravihari, are you clear?
Yes.
What about Upamali, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can somebody summarize the things that we discussed, just the topics that we discussed in the last week lecture? So initially, what did we discuss? So initially we discussed what is strategy and what is competitive strategy. And then we discussed about what is supply chain strategy and what is a value chain. And then we discussed about how to achieve the strategic fit and what are the steps involved in achieving strategic fit. Okay, so these are the things that we covered in the this main lecture last week as well as in this week's lecture. So I hope everyone is clear. And then we discussed about what is the difference between efficient and responsive supply chains. Okay, so you have an activity that you have to do under the discussion class. You have to discuss the challenges to achieving and maintaining strategic fit. So after taking the like your presentations, the discussion lecturer will discuss this particular part as well. Okay, so I hope everyone got an understanding about this particular lesson. Can you just send me a message whether you understood everything or not? Whether you are clear or not? Can everybody send me a message whether you are clear or not? Okay, so I hope everyone is clear. So what we can do is we can move on to the lesson that we have to cover today. So today we have to cover about supply chain drivers. So this is the third lesson of our lecture series under supply chain management. So today we have to have like 3 ILOs that we need to achieve. So at the end of the lesson, students will be able to, first one is identify major drivers of supply chain performance. So when we consider about supply chain performance and structuring a supply chain, we have to identify like 6 major drivers. So we'll discuss about those 6 major drivers. Okay, so the second one is ability to structure supply chain drivers to achieve a balance between responsiveness and efficiency. So as I mentioned earlier, based on the competitive strategy, under supply chain strategy, we have to either go for a responsive supply chain or efficient supply chain. Basically, we have to structure that. Okay, so we will be discussing about how this will be discussing in here how to structure that particular balance. And the next one is you should be able to identify the role of each driver in structuring a supply chain. So these are the 3 ILOs. This should be 3. These are the 3 ILOs that we are going to achieve at the end of the lesson today. Okay, so for the purpose of delivering the lecture, I have divided the lecture into mainly 7 parts. Even though there are 7 topics, we can cover it within the time frame. So initially, we will discuss a small introduction to drivers of supply chain performance, and then we'll be going into one by one the drivers. As I mentioned earlier, there are 6 drivers: facilities, inventory, transportation, information, sourcing, and pricing. So these are the 6 drivers that we are going to discuss today. So we'll start with a small introduction into drivers of supply chain performance. So basically, as we mentioned earlier, achieving strategic fit means the organization should, company supply chain should achieve a balance between responsiveness and efficiency.
So through achieving a strategic fit means, so I hope you all can remember the zone of strategic fit that we discussed previously. So it basically, that strategic fit means we have to have a balance between our responsiveness and efficiency. So through that we can achieve a strategic fit. Okay, so to improve responsiveness and efficiency, we can focus on the drivers of supply chain performance. So to improve responsiveness or efficiency, we have to have a focus on our drivers as well. Okay, so basically these drivers interact with each other as well as the supply chain's performance in determining the supply chain's performance. So as I mentioned earlier, our goal is to structure the drivers to achieve the desired level of responsiveness at the lowest possible cost. Through that, we can improve the supply chain surplus. So basically, the goal of structuring a drivers of supply chain performance is to achieve the desired level of responsiveness at the lowest possible cost. So that would be our goal in structuring the supply chain drivers or drivers of supply chain performance. Okay, so as we mentioned earlier, I have identified 6 drivers. So how many drivers can you all remember up to now? So can you all send me an answer through the chat option? How many of the drivers can you remember? We just talked about the 6 drivers. I just mentioned them. How many of you all can remember? So there were 6. Can you all send me an answer through the chat option, the things that you remember? Send it as a one message. Rajni. Okay, so I have some answers in my chat box. Location, I think everyone cannot remember all the 6 drivers. Some of you, no, nobody have said me all the 6 drivers. Okay, so there are 6 drivers. So these particular 6 drivers can be divided into mainly 2 categories. Okay, so one is logistical drivers and the other one is cross-functional drivers. So as mentioned earlier, these particular 6 drivers can be divided as logistical drivers as well as cross-functional drivers. So these are the 3 logistical drivers: facilities, inventory, and transportation are the logistical drivers. And the next one is cross-functional drivers. So information, sourcing, and pricing. So these are the 3 cross-functional drivers, and these are the 3 logistical drivers. Okay. So moving on, we will be discussing one by one. So before discussing that, I will have us another one. So framework for structuring supply chain drivers. So if we consider, organization has a competitive strategy. So based on that, we have to develop the supply chain strategy. So when you are defining the supply chain strategy, we have to either focus on going for responsiveness or efficiency or somewhere in between. So basically, supply chain structure, we have to structure the supply chain. Structuring the supply chain means we have to consider about the logistical and cross-functional drivers. So it means we might have the right combination of the 3 logistical and 3 cross-functional drivers to determine the responsiveness and efficiency of the entire supply chain. So basically, structuring a supply chain means we have to structure the logistical drivers and the cross-functional drivers based on our supply chain strategy. So supply chain strategy, if it is efficiency, we have to structure the logistical drivers as well as the cross-functional drivers in a way that we can go for efficiency. If it is responsiveness, we have to structure in a way that we have to go for efficiency. Okay. I hope it's clear with everyone. So these things we discussed. So we will discuss these parts as well. So in a supply chain, we can say inventory is what what is being passed on the supply chain. Transportation is how. Facilities is where we will discuss about in deep. So we discussed about these things as we mentioned earlier. Usually this framework is done in a top-down manner, from top to bottom. Sometimes it may goes up to like bottom to top based on the drivers. We can define our supply chain strategy and we have to change the competitive strategy based on that also. But most of the time, like 90% of the time, it happens from top to bottom. Okay, so is everyone clear about the framework for the general introduction into drivers of supply chain performance? Yes or no? Can somebody just mention whether you are clear or not? Okay, Khatu, you are, is it clear or is it not clear, Khatu? Okay, so he's asking to the last slide. Okay, so I will explain this one. Oh, this one. This one, Khatu? Oh, the other one. This one. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, when in organization, we have to initially define the competitive strategy. So based on the competitive strategy, we have to define the supply chain strategy. So when you are defining the supply chain strategy based on the customer segment and other things that we have to consider and our capabilities, we have to either go for a efficient supply chain or a responsive supply chain. So structuring supply chain means structuring our logistical and cross-functional drivers to be efficient or to be responsive or somewhere in between. Okay, so that's the basic idea of structuring supply chain drivers. So as I mentioned earlier, we have to identify the right combination of 3 logistical drivers and cross-functional drivers to determine the responsiveness or efficiency of the entire supply chain. So we have to identify the right combination of the logistical drivers and cross-functional drivers to determine the efficiency and the responsiveness of the whole supply chain. Are you clear, Fatu, now?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so moving on, so we'll discuss one by one now. So initially we have to discuss about facilities. So as I mentioned earlier, facilities would be where in the supply chain. So basically, if inventory is the thing that is passed along the supply chain, facilities would be where you are going to locate your facilities. Okay, so we can identify. So basically, facilities means locations to or from which the inventory is transported. Sometimes we have to transport inventory to our locations, or from our locations. Okay, so basically, within a facility, we can identify inventory is either transformed into another state, basically where we do manufacturing or operations. So that's also a facility. So there are basically two types of facility. One is manufacturing facilities and other one is warehousing facility. Warehousing means where inventory is stored, transformed or stored. If it is transformed, it is a manufacturing facility. If it is stored, it is a warehousing facility. So basically there are two types of facilities. Okay, so as you can see, this is a manufacturing facility. This is a warehousing or a storage facility. So are you all clear about what is meant by facilities? Upamali?
Clear, sir.
Tahani Israt?
Yes, sir.
Julian?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you are clear, no? So if you have any questions, you can ask me then and there. So moving on to these facilities and what is the role in competitive strategy in defining facilities. Okay, so for example, if you are going for efficient priority, so if your competitive strategy and your supply chain strategy is in line with the efficient priority, what you have to do is you have to centralize your strategy. So what is efficiency means? What is like supply chain efficiency? Who can explain? Divanu, can you explain what is like going for efficiency in a supply chain means? Divanu, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what is meant by like supply chain efficiency? Yes, Divanu? Kaushani, can you explain?
Can't, sir.
Can't tell where. You have to have idea now because we discussed about efficiency also. Come on, it's okay. So what about Lakshi? Can you explain? Then what about Ashin? Can you explain?
Can't, sir.
Okay, so everyone is can't. No? So basically, supply chain efficiency. We discussed these things today itself also. So basically, supply chain efficiency means you have to reduce your cost. So if you are going for efficient priority, it means you have to reduce your cost. To reduce your cost in terms of facilities, how we are going to like use facilities to reduce our cost is we are going to use a centralization strategy. Okay, so basically it means in a supply chain, facilities are going to located in a one location. The storing or manufacturing is done in a one location. So when you have a one centralized location, it means we can earn economies of scale. So basically all the production facilities are in one location or storing facilities are one location. So you have to incur less cost if you have a centralized strategy in terms of like having in terms of like facility cost. The cost reduction is at the expense of responsiveness. So if you have a centralized facility, it is at the expense of responsiveness. For example, if you consider like a large country like USA, so if we say this one as USA, so we are going to have a facility here. So we are going to only have one facility here. So our one customer would be here, another customer would be here, and the third customer would be here, and the fourth customer would be here, and fifth customer would be here. So basically, our focus is on efficiency. To transport the particular product from this manufacturing facility or from the storage facility to customer to here, it takes about 4 days like time. So the responsiveness is very low. For the third customer, it would only take 1 day. For this customer, it will take 2 days. For this customer, also 2 days. For this customer, it would take 5 days. So likewise, for different customers, our responsiveness is different based on the distance between our centralized location to the customer. So basically, if you are going for efficient priority means we have to, it would be at the expense of responsiveness. Okay, so I hope this one is clear. Okay, so if you are like structuring our facility driver to achieve the responsiveness priority. So if you are going for responsiveness, locating facilities close to the customer. So in here, we are using a decentralized strategy instead of using a centralization strategy. So eventually leading to lower efficiency. So basically, if you have like large number means if you have like higher number of facilities, you have to incur certain cost. For example, for each and every area, you have to buy land, and you have to have separate security officers, and you have to have separate departments. Likewise, you have to have different expenses are associated with facilities. So because of that, it increases your cost. So increasing your cost means your efficiency is going to be low, but your responsiveness is very high. Okay, so we have to go for responsive priority if the customers are willing to pay for the additional cost. So certain customers like prefer high responsiveness rather than going for low cost products. As up for responsive, it would be enable the company to meet its competitive strategy. So this is the role in competitive strategy. So to structure facility based on efficient priority, you have to go for a centralization strategy. To structure facilities based on a responsive priority, you have to go for a decentralized facility where we are going to locate our facilities close to the customer. So if we take the early example, if this is USA, we have facilities here, we have facilities here, and here, and here, and here. So it's very easy. So for each and every customer, within 1 day, we can supply our products to customers. So that is responsive strategy, but our cost is high because we have to maintain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have to 5 facilities within the country. So 5 facilities means we have to buy land, we have to have security people, we have to build warehouse facilities or manufacturing facilities, and we have to have separate operations. We have to have separate managers for each and every factory. Likewise, expenses add up. So expenses add up means our cost is high, but our efficiency is going to be low, but our responsiveness is high. So we have to go for a such strategy if the customers are willing to pay for the additional cost to become a responsive supply chain. Is everyone clear? So as example, we can say Toyota and Honda. So basically, they have gone for a decentralized strategy for each and every their major markets. They have opened their own manufacturing facility for Asia, for USA, for Australia. Likewise, they have they have like created their own manufacturing facilities in those regions. So we have a small video with regard to Amazon India. We'll watch that video and come back again. So it's regarding the facilities.
If you've ever wondered how many products do humans actually need, just take a look at these shelves. How does your online package gets delivered in less than 24 hours? What happens from the time you hit that buy button to the time your delivery is made at your doorstep? I decided to visit Amazon's fulfillment center in Haryana to find out what happens behind the scenes. So this is step 1 at Amazon's fulfillment center. This is where all the sellers who actually list their products on Amazon.in send their inventory, and this fulfillment center helps them store their inventory. There is more tech in it than you think. Once this inventory is unloaded from the trucks, it's brought into Amazon's fulfillment center, and then all this goes through their scanning system where it's weighed, it's marked before they shelf it in the center. Once the item is scanned into the system, it is added to these shelves here, which is as good as being listed on Amazon.in. When it comes to the e-commerce battle, speed is everything. The associates on the floor are handing out this device that actually flashes the number of the aisle. For instance, something like this number, to tell them where they need to pick the products from to send it to the packing stations. It also helps them make the most of the storage space available and tell them where they can store the products and which aisle or which rack has more space available. All these conveyor belts that you see right here have a scanner that is installed inside them. They identify each of these totes to tell the system whether an order is multi or singular. And depending on the nature of the order, the totes are automatically passed on to the packing stations. Now this is where all the magic happens. This is where your products are packed and put together before they are shipped out for delivery. While I was on this floor, I noticed a little trick that these Amazon associates use. Remember we told you that all the products that are brought into the fulfillment center are weighed before they are shelved? Well, once you place the order, the associates here tally the total weight of the products along with the weight of the box just to ensure they haven't packed anything that wasn't supposed to be delivered. A simple but a very logical trick. As a customer, when you place an order, you are shown a promised time of delivery, and that same time is reflected on Amazon's internal system as well. The internal technology and algorithm helps each fulfillment center decide by what time it has to be packed and by what time it has to be shipped via which mode of transportation. So this is my favorite part and the last leg at the fulfillment center, where finally packaged products are kept. And if you're an online shopping addict like I am, then you would know what I'm talking about. The smell of fresh packaging and the mystery of not knowing what's inside it. That's it on this edition of CNBC TV 18's Inside Amazon Fulfillment Center. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, so I think I got an idea about what happens within a facility. Okay, so that is not very much related to the discussion under facilities, but it's somewhat related. Okay, so moving on. So when you consider about components of a facility decision, we have to consider about this thing. So one is location. So as I mentioned earlier, whether we are going to go for a centralized strategy or decentralized strategy. So apart from that, we have to consider some other factors also when we are deciding the location, like quality of work, cost of work. So is it, for example, if you go for a country like United States or any other country, the cost of work would be high. If you like choose an Asian country like India or any Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, the cost of work is very low. And the next one is availability of infrastructure, whether they have roads, whether they have uninterrupted electricity, likewise those things, proximity to customers, macroeconomic factors like tax and policies of the country or in the region. So likewise, all those things have to be decided based on the location. So these are components of facilities decision. And the next one is capacity. So whether you are going to go for a high capacity facilities or low capacity facilities. So if you are going for high capacity means you can increase, you have a high flexibility. So flexibility means you can increase the responsiveness. Or else we have to go for reduce, or else we can reduce the efficiency by reduce, if you are going for increasing the responsiveness, our efficiency would be lower. So likewise, we have to take a decision regarding capacity as well. And the next one is manufacturing methodology. Are we going to go for product focus or process focus? And if it is a warehouse, we have to either have to consider, are we going to use cross-docking functions? So we'll learn about this cross-docking in another topic. So are we going to go for job load storage or storage just in time? Likewise, we have to make this decision. So basically components of facility decision are location, capacity, manufacturing methodology, and warehouse methodology. Okay, so these are the components of facilities decision. Is everyone clear about facilities up to now? The things that we covered up to now under facilities? MG21087, are you clear? So please rename yourself with your registration number and your calling name. MG20 106 106.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so please rename yourself with your name as well, not only the registration number. So what about MG 2138? MG 2138. Did you understand? Asantika? Asantika,
Understood.
you understood, no? You have you asked a question or something? You have sent me a message. I can't understand what you have mentioned here. Is there a question with you, Asantika? Asantika, do you have any questions that you need to clarify?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is inventory. So basically, inventory is the what that is like transfer. What is passed along the supply chain. So basically, facilities are where that you're going to store, manufacture facilities. So inventory means what is passed along the supply chain. Okay, so inventory is basically inventory means is a result of mismatch between the demand and supply. So if we have a perfect match between demand and supply, we don't need to keep any inventory within our manufacturing facilities or within our retail mean within our particular inventory warehousing facilities. So basically, if there is a mismatch between demand and supply, we have to keep inventory. So sometimes this particular mismatch is intentional. For example, we can say retail stores inventory is held in anticipation of meeting future demand. So based on the anticipation of future demand, we keep inventory. Okay, so that is what is inventory. So basically, inventory can be considered as a source of responsiveness as well as efficiency. Efficiency means reduction of cost. So this also plays a role in efficiency as well as responsiveness. So inventory increases responsiveness. So for example, in a facility, if we have higher number of inventory, it means whenever a customer places an order, we can send the particular product quickly to the customer. Okay, so but it reduces so likewise we can increase the responsiveness as well as we can reduce the cost by manufacturing as well. Cost of manufacturing. Okay, so not cost of doing business. Cost of manufacturing can be reduced because if we are like manufacturing products in higher quantities, we can get economies of scale. Okay, so that's another way. Okay, so moving on. So when you consider about role in competitive strategy, inventory also we can have in a centralized location. So if you have a centralized inventory, we can go for efficiency priority. So it means we are going to have the inventory on one location. So when you have one location, our cost associated with having inventory is very low. And the next one is responsive priority, inventory near to the customer. So if we have inventory facilities near to the customer, we can quickly send the items to customer at a higher responsiveness rate at a low, but the cost would be higher because we have to maintain different inventories near to the customers. Okay, so the goal of the supply chain is to determine the right form. So in which form are we going to keep it as work in process or raw materials or finished goods? Location, which locations? The quantity of inventories. So each facility, how much quantity are we going to have in inventory? To have the right level of responsiveness at the lowest cost. So the goal of supply chain in structuring an inventory would be to determine the right form, location, quantity of inventory in order to provide the right level of responsiveness at the lowest cost. Okay, so for example, read this particular example. After that, I will explain. So read this particular example. Okay, so in this example, it says Amazon sells a wide variety of books through its online store. So basically, initially, Amazon started as a book, online bookstore. So they sell books through online. For best-selling books, they keep regional inventory. So only for best-selling books. For best-selling books, they keep regional to improve responsiveness. So basically, fast-moving products. For fast-moving products, they have regional inventories. For normal moving books, the inventory is kept in a centralized equation. So the particularly for fast moving books, they have regional inventories. For normal moving books, they have a centralized inventories. So likewise, even within an organization, they can have different priorities. For certain things, they can focus on efficiency. For certain things, they can provide responsiveness because the customers are different. So for customers who are focusing on responsiveness, they have to provide responsiveness. For the customers who focus on efficiency, they have to provide efficiency. Okay, so likewise, we can identify these are the components of inventory. So I can identify these things as inventory. So basically, cycle inventory. So cycle inventory means the average amount of inventory used to satisfy demand between receipts of supply shipments. Okay, so that's the one component. And the next one is safety inventory. So basically, cycle inventory means how much of inventory should we keep to satisfy the particular customer. Okay, so the next one is safety inventory is the inventory that is held in case of demand exceeds expectations. For example, we might keep, say, for example, if our order is 100, but to be safe, we are going to keep about 120. So the 20 would be excess. The excess 20 would be kept as safety inventory. Okay, so another one is seasonal inventory. So basically, seasonal inventory is built up to counter predictable seasonable variability in demand. For example, if you consider this one as if you have 4 seasons, for example, for winter jackets, during the winter season, we have a peak demand. But in summer season, we don't have a peak demand for our winter jackets. So what organizations do is they develop seasonal inventories. For example, in non-peak times, they produce in anticipation of selling the items in peak periods. So in peak periods, they will have the normal manufacturing, while even though they don't have any demand in the non-peak areas, less demand, they will produce and they will just keep it in stock and they can sell it in the peak demand areas. Okay, so this is inventory. Is everyone clear about inventory? Saranya, are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Suganya, are you clear? Tanusikan, are you clear? Tanusikan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is transportation. So this is the third logistical driver. So basically, transportation means how we are going to pass the particular inventory in between facilities or in between facility and customer, likewise. Okay, so basically transportation moves products between different stages in a supply chain. So we mentioned that there are different stages within a supply chain. Transportation helps us to move this particular product. Product means inventory or our finished or raw material product or anything between different stages of a supply chain. The type of transportation the company uses affects the facility, inventory, and locations in a supply chain as well. So as I mentioned earlier, all of these particular drivers are interconnected. So one decision might affect other drivers as well. So that's why the type of transportation that we use affects the facility and inventory locations in a supply chain as well. Okay, so moving on, if we discuss the role in competitive priority, if we go for efficient priority, efficiency means, as I mentioned earlier, we have to go for low cost options. So if you go for low cost transportation options means most of the time our transportation methods would be slower. So if you go for efficient priority, our priority is lower, such as using ships, trains would be, if we are focusing on having efficiency priority, our focus would be using trains. So trains means you can transport very large quantity of goods at a lower cost. Even in ships also very large quantity of goods at a lower cost. So basically, but the time that is taken to transport is high when compared with other methods. So we can use these particular slower transportation methods if the customer's priority is low cost products. Okay. So the other one is responsive priority. Responsive priority means fast transportation methods. So we have to use fast transportation methods like airplanes. So for example, if a customer wants a particular product from Sri Lanka, we have to send it to America. The fastest method is using airplanes, not using ships or not using trains or not using other things. So using airplane freights would be very suitable if the customer is willing to pay for a higher amount and they need the particular product at a very quickly. So under such situations, we can go for responsive priority through having fast transportation methods for customers who are willing to pay for that. For example, if you consider, even as I mentioned earlier, even in organizations, they have segments. So for the customers who are willing to pay for a higher amount for quicker delivery, they can use these options. For example, Amazon, they offer next day delivery. For example, if you place an order today, they are going to send the particular product tomorrow for an additional fee. If not, normal delivery would be taking 3 to 5 days. So if you want the particular product next day, you have to pay an additional fee. So it means customer is willing to pay for an additional fee for the highly responsiveness. If not, you can use the normal delivery, which takes 3 to 5 days. Okay, so we have a small video with regard to DHL, how they have transporting. We'll watch that video and come back in.
If you've ever wondered,
Ensuring the right goods arrive at the right time and flow seamlessly through your supply chain is an ongoing challenge. It requires coordinated collections from suppliers and synchronized deliveries to your manufacturing or warehousing sites. To help you tackle these supply chain challenges and improve your transport costs, DHL's inbound transport solution will provide the right number of vehicles, optimize your routes, and reduce your environmental footprint. We coordinate collections from your suppliers to ensure you receive every part or component exactly when and where you need it. providing you with the constant source of materials so you don't have to store large volumes of inventory, freeing up on-site space and reducing the overall cost of your inventory. By consolidating deliveries, we minimize the number of suppliers accessing your facility, leading to reduced yard traffic. And by holding extensive safety training with both our dedicated and subcontracted fleets, we are able to help mitigate risk. You'll also gain access to new markets through our worldwide footprint, along with the reassurance of the same high-quality standards no matter the location. By outsourcing your inbound transportation to DHL, you'll gain the increased visibility needed to run and optimize your end-to-end supply chain. To unlock the competitive advantage in your supply chain, contact one of our inbound
Okay, so I think you got an idea about transportation through the video. Okay, so when we discuss about components of a transportation decision, we have to identify the choice of transportation mode. Whether you are going to use air, truck, rail, sea, pipeline, likewise, we have to identify what is the transportation mode. For example, for intangible goods like movies through Netflix or movies that we can download or softwares that we can download, so they can internet for information. Okay, so we can use internet also as a transportation method. So each of these transportation method varies in speed, size of shipments, cost of shipping, and flexibility. For example, if you use like sea, our size of shipments is usually large. For rail also such as here. For air, we cannot use high huge shipments. Huge shipments means products for which products that are very large in size and very large in quantity, as well as very large in weight as well. Okay, so the next one is design of transportation network. So basically, we have to design the transportation like first. What methods are we going to use within the, but for example, if we are using country within Sri Lanka, what are the transportation modes that we are going to use within the country? And when you are sending it outside the country, what are the transportation methods? So we can use multiple methods, multiple mode transportations. And where we are going to locate our facilities. What is the routes that we are going to use? Are we going to use highway, which we have, where we have to pay tolls likewise? And in-house or outsource. So whether we are going to have our own transportation fleet or are we going to outsource the particular function to another party? So likewise, we have to decide on these particular factors with these particular components when you are doing transportation decisions. Okay, so I hope everyone is clear about transportation. So now we'll move forward to the information. So basically, information facilitates the connection between different stages. So basically, within a supply chain, as we mentioned earlier, even though we say it as a chain, it is actually a network or a web. So there are different parties. So it acts as a web of web. So within this web, to coordinate between each and every people, you need information. So that's why we say information facilitates a connection between different states in the supply chain and improves coordination. So if you have a good information flow or good information system that we can share information, we can have a efficient supply chain. Okay, so good information helps the utilization of supply chain assets. So basically, if you have good information, we can develop production schedules and we can maintain optimum inventory level. For example, if we can like predict the customer's demands prior, we can have a good production schedules. So likewise, more the information means more accurate and valuable information, we can improve our efficiency of the supply chain as well. Okay, so when you consider about the role of in the competitive strategy, so basically, when you consider about information allows us to be more efficient as well as more responsiveness at the same time. So when you consider about logistical drivers, these drivers had a trade-off. Either we have to go for responsiveness or for efficiency. But when you consider about information, through having information, we can both become more efficient as well as more responsive. So reduces the need for a trade-off. Okay, so basically nowadays, when you are to have information structure, we invest in information technology. So basically, when we invest in information technology, it improves our visibility of the supply chain. So visibility of the transaction. So it means we can improve our coordination across the supply chain. For example, if you consider in a garment factory, they monitor daily output input through systems, which enables better coordination among suppliers, customers in determining the delivery dates and also order placements of raw materials. For example, we have planned our daily output to be 100, but our actual but actually we are producing 120. So it means we are performing way better than our plans. So it means, so through that information, the particular people who are planning should plan ahead and mention that we are going to achieve our delivery date prior, and we have to make arrangement for the transportation, and we have to place raw material orders prior. Likewise, we have to take decisions using this information. So all the things can be monitored through a system itself if you have invested in information technology. So everyone can have a bird's eye view of the particular supply chain process if you have a good information structure. Okay, so when you consider about components, either we are going to use a push process or a pull process. I think you have idea about what is the pull process and push process. Do you guys have an idea about a pull process and a push process? Let me, do you have idea about what is meant by a push process and a pull process? I think I discussed this one in the first week lesson. Let me. Tashmi, do you have idea? Harushi, do you have idea about what is meant by push and pull? Okay, so then I will assume that you have an idea. Okay, so the next one is coordination and information sharing. So basically through information, we can improve the coordination. So as I mentioned earlier, if you have more information, if you can share information in a very quick manner and a very visible manner, you can improve the coordination among supply chain. Okay, so because of that, we can achieve the common objective of improving the total supply chain surplus. And sales and operations plan. So based on the information that is transmitted from the marketing teams, we have to build up operations to meet the customer requirements. So it means these are the components. Either we are going for a push process or a pull process. We have to consider about the coordination and information sharing, what information to be shared, and we have to take input from the marketing teams, and based on that, we have to prepare the operations plan. Okay, so apart from that, we can identify enabling technologies. So likewise, we using ERP systems, EDI, internet, supply chain management systems, we can use this. So in here, the complexity overall trade-off is not between efficiency and responsiveness, as I mentioned earlier. So it might be between complexity and value. So if our particular information system is highly complex, so we cannot find information properly. We have more than information that is required. We have information that does not have any value. So it's highly complex. So basically, we should have the right amount of data to improve both responsiveness and the cost. Okay, so basically you have to make sure that you capture the right data in a less complex manner in order to improve the value. Okay, so do you have any questions with regard to information? So if you are clear, just mention that you are clear in the chat box. If not, just let me know what you need to clarify. Can you just send me a message through the chat option? So do you have questions or not? If you have questions, you can mention it in the chat box. If not, just say that you are clear. So we can move forward. Can you just quickly mention it? Okay, it seems everyone is clear. So we'll move forward. So now we are going to talk about sourcing. So sourcing means basically the set of business processes required to purchase goods and services. So sourcing means purchasing of goods and services. So it could be either upstream purchasing, or downstream purchasing from the downstream, or it could be horizontal in the supply chain. Okay, so horizontal means in the same level. For example, if we are manufacturers, we are going to source it from another manufacturer. So if we are raw material suppliers, we are going to source from another raw material supplier. So likewise. So in here, we have to focus on supplier selection, single versus multiple suppliers, how we are going to negotiate contracts. So likewise, when you are structuring this particular sourcing driver, you have to focus on these factors. Okay, so when you consider about role in the competitive strategy, sourcing decisions are very crucial because it affects both the level of efficiency as well as the responsiveness of a supply chain. So one decision is either we are going to make in-house or outsource. For example, the major function should be always done in-house, and some other functions that we are not efficient in doing, we can outsource them to improve efficiency as well as responsiveness. For example, as I mentioned earlier, at MAS, they outsource the printing function to organization called Streamline. So because they are mainly focused on manufacturing means stitching garments. So they are mainly focused on doing that in-house. And the printing within that printing that comes in garments or the embellishments, they do it using another outsourced party. Okay. Because they are more efficient and specialized in doing embellishments rather than MAs. Okay, so that's how we are going to do sourcing here. So when you consider about components, so as I mentioned earlier, in-house or outsourced decisions. The next one is supply selection. So managers have to identify how many suppliers are we going to have. Are we going to have one single supplier, or are we going to have multiple suppliers? So sometimes having one single supplier that is dedicated to you is beneficial. So sometimes it's not beneficial because they can dictate their terms of conditions. If we only have one supplier, if you have like multiple suppliers, if one supplier is asking for more money, we can move to another supplier. So likewise, we have the flexibility if we have higher number of facilities suppliers. And the procurement process, we have to define the procurement process. Okay, so the next one is overall trade-off. In here, the trade-off is to increase the supply chain surplus. So if you have outsourced a certain function to an outside single party, so as I mentioned earlier, they have the autonomy to increase. So that's why I say it's better to choose more suppliers, more than either two or more than two suppliers. Don't depend on one single supplier, because if the supplier is bankrupt or if the supplier needs to dictate their own terms, they have their autonomy. Okay, so the next one is pricing. So when you are discussing pricing, so pricing means is the process by which a firm decides how much to charge customer for its goods and services. So basically pricing means how much, what is the amount that we are going to charge for a product or service from the customer. So in here we have to decide that particular price. So okay, so pricing affects the customer segments as well. For example, as I mentioned earlier, when understanding the customer, we have to understand what is the segment that we are going to cater. For example, if we are going to cater a niche market where particular people who are able to buy high luxury products, it means the pricing should be higher. So for example, if we are focusing on like average people who prefers low cost products, we have to go for low cost pricing. Okay, so based on the customer segment also, pricing is different from segment to segment. So that's why we say we use this particular pricing as a lever to match supply and demand. So basically this is a simple concept of economy. So if we increase the price of a product, our demand would be lower and our supply would be higher. So if we lowers the particular product price of the product, our demand is higher than the supply. So that's why we say we use pricing as a lever to match supply and demand. Okay, so basically we can use short-term discounts to eliminate supply surpluses, decrease seasonal demand spikes. Likewise, we can use these particular discounts also when you are doing pricing decisions. Okay, so when you consider about role in the competitive strategy, we can utilize optimal pricing to improve efficiency as well as responsiveness. So two options that we can use low price and low product availability. So for the customers who does not consider much about availability or the responsiveness, we can provide them with low price. Or else we can have vary prices per response time. So as we mentioned earlier, if a person is needs a particular product in a highly responsive manner, we can increase the particular price of the particular product. For example, as I mentioned earlier, Amazon offers shipping based on different prices based on the shipping time. So we discussed this one earlier also. And Costco, a large retailer in America, gives. So these are the two. One is vary prices between response time. It's Amazon. So this one, low price and low productivity, Costco. So a large retail store in America gives product at a steady low price. So most of the time their products are very low and strive to the low cost provided in the market at the expense of low product availability. Low product availability means their responsiveness is very low. Sometimes there might be stock outs. Likewise, there are certain situations, even though they provide products at a low cost. Okay, so when you consider about components, we can consider pricing and economies of scale. So for example, if you have producing in very bulk, you have economies of scale. So to provide that, you can provide quantity discounts. For example, if you buy 10 or more products, you can have another product free, or we can reduce 10%. Likewise, pricing and economies can provide quantity-based discounts. And the next one is everyday low pricing, as mentioned in like Costco. So every time you are going to provide at a very low cost, you are not going to provide any discounts at a very low cost. Product is at very cost every day. Or else high-low pricing. In certain times, you are going to provide the product at its normal price, or else sometimes you are going to provide discounts for that particular product. And fixed prices as well as menu pricing. So fixed price means the price of the product is fixed. So there is no any thing to choose. Or have a menu with prices. For example, if you need the particular product, you can use air freight. So if it is air freight, $100 more. So if you are using ships, it only takes $50. So likewise, you can have menu pricing. Menu pricing means based on different attributes or response timers or a location of delivery, you can charge them. For example, if the customer is coming to the product, you only have to pay for the product. If you have to deliver, we have to pay extra. So if you are using delivery, you can have different options. So that is menu pricing. Menu pricing means there are different attributes that you can choose from. So fixed price means for everyone, the price is same. So there is no any changes. Okay, so these are the examples that we had discussed. So there is some videos that we missed here. We will watch one video and come back again. Okay.
I'm Alex Berman, and you're watching Selling Breakdowns. Although there are many different industries and services and products, there's one thing that ties all businesses together. You sell your product for more than it costs, right? Well, not always. Today we're going to look at the idea of loss leaders, where retailers sell some items at a loss in order to attract customers. We'll use Walmart as our main example, but we'll look into a few others as well. Let's start with some recent news. In case you haven't heard, Amazon recently bought Whole Foods, and their first act, practically on day one, was to slash prices. It seems strange, doesn't it? Whole Foods is a really strong brand, famous for its high-quality produce. Why not just use the existing Amazon distribution structure to help it expand? Well, Amazon knows that the reason they're so dominant online is that they operate at very fine margins, and Walmart's not that much different. So if you want to compete in the grocery business, you have to go cheap. Seriously cheap. Even if you forget about coupons, it's possible to buy a basket of something in Walmart where the store would be making zero profit or even a loss on every single item. The most common are dairy products like milk and eggs. A gallon of milk might sell for $4, but it could cost them $6 from the supplier. Eggs typically sell for a 10% loss or more. It's true for many other household items like toilet paper, health and beauty products, some frozen goods. But the whole point of a supermarket is that you don't just go in there and buy 2 items, you're there for the price and the convenience. So you'll do all your shopping in one place. And if you know that the groceries you always need, like milk and eggs, are cheaper in Walmart than any other store, that'll be where you shop. You're not going to pick up the eggs and milk, check out, then drive to the next store with the cheapest chicken, then the next store with the best price on beer. No, they hook you in with your regular items and know that they'll turn a profit on the other things in your basket. It's their enormous size that allows them to have so many of these loss leaders. They simply have the revenue to walk these margins, knowing that all they need to do is keep getting people through the doors, and enough customers will buy big profit margin items to cover the super savers. The model of the grocery business is what a lot of businesses want. Loyal customers making regular purchases because volume is what makes you the real money, most of the time. Better to have 1 million customers making you $1 profit than 1 customer making you $1 million, because you can't rely on just 1 customer and it might be hard to find another. But if you can sell 1 million people, why not 2 million, 3, 4, so on? So when Gillette sells you a razor, they don't need to make any money on the handle, which is expensive to produce. You can have that for free for all they care, but once you have the handle, you're locked into buying Gillette blades for months or years, and the blade...
So I will upload these videos to the website, to the Moodle, so you can watch this video. So these are the things that we had to cover today. So what are the things, as a summary, what are the things that we covered today? So initially we discussed about structuring of drivers of supply chain performance, and we went through one by one. So can somebody mention what are the categories that we can make the drivers? What are the 2 categories? Sabna, can you mention what are the 2 categories of supply chain drivers? Yes, Sabna. Sachini, can you mention the 2 types of drivers?
Logistic drivers and conventional drivers.
Yeah, logistical drivers and cross-functional drivers. So under logistical drivers, we have facilities. We have inventory, and we have transportation. So under cross-functional drivers, we discussed about sourcing, information, and pricing. Okay, so these are the things that we discussed. So basically, based on your competitive strategy and supply chain strategy, you have to structure your cross-functional as well as logistical drivers in a way to achieve either responsiveness or efficiency. Okay, so these are the things that we covered today. So there's a discussion question that you have to go through. And thank you. So if you don't have any questions, we can finish off for today. I hope everyone is clear with the lessons that we covered today. So attend to the discussion class that you have today. So will be either myself or discussion lecturer will be taking the presentations from you all. So thank you everyone. So if you don't have any questions, you can leave the meeting. If you have any questions, you can send me the question through the chat option. Thank you everyone.